Rob Grimes with the IFPTA, and I'm really pleased today to have Brian Whitney with me, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of Tray. And they are one of our latest industry supporter partner members. So welcome to the IFPTA.
Thanks, Rob. Very happy to be here. Excited to be here and work with the whole team at IFPTA.
So let's go back now for a second to the 15-year piece, because I'm sitting there. Okay, so obviously you're not hoping that people are going to have 15 years. You're just making a point that, it's out there. But what we do know is that certain segments of the industry, especially in full service, will keep a system forever if they can, because getting them to trade up on the hardware side, so usually it's actually the opposite. You sit there and you say, you can replace your hardware, go ahead and evergreen your hardware, but keep your software. But in this case, you're sort of saying keep both, which is a little bit different than the normal conversation somebody would have when they're trying to sell them a system and say, we'll evergreen the hardware and change it up every few years, but you can stay with us on the software piece.
Well, it's been a disruptive thing, and quite frankly, from my personal perspective, and this is one of the reasons why I was so attracted to Tray, is the number of times I had to call people and say, I know you want the new software. To get the new software, you've got to upgrade your hardware because your hardware won't support the software. How many times has any merchant who's ever watching this going to had that conversation? Heck, it happens to us in our homes with our laptops and streaming devices. So Tray disrupts that. We don't have to do that. So the things that it really enables is the story of the 15-year-old hardware. That's great, and that's the one-off for either the franchisee.
I get it. That's good. There you go.
But I think where it really has more of a play is I, as a brand, want to move forward, and I want to move from a client-server-based platform or an older platform or a platform that's not serving me from a software perspective to a new platform. What do I have to do to move forward? What does that look like? Do I have supply chain constraints with getting hardware? Do I have franchisee capital cost concerns to get hardware? Do I have physical installation timelines and disruption to stores around that hardware? All of those get removed. We've literally gone into stores where they do breakfast service on their older system. We convert and they do a lunch service on Tray inside of a singular trading day, because we work with the same infrastructure and we work very quickly. That level of capability enables brands to move quickly. So you don't have to, anytime you're doing a POS replacement at 1,000 stores or 1,500 stores, for some period of time, you're maintaining dual systems. And anytime you want to change it, you're changing it dual systems. We minimize that window significantly.
Well, you would, because they're accessing the new system from outside the store, but the old system is probably inside the store. So it's really the flip of a switch.
In our case, yes. So we literally, you configure everything in the cloud, and when you show up at the store, you convert the hardware from Windows to Android, it preloads all the software, downloads everything it needs, and in a few minutes, you're up and running.
So do you find a limitation there? It's interesting because you have people building on the Android platform, you have people building on iOS, they're building on Microsoft. Are there any limitations there when you're talking to a client? I'm guessing no, because you're saying it doesn't really matter which hardware it is on there. But is there some limitation or some reason that somebody would resist that?
I think the hesitation can come into a couple different ways. But from a limitation perspective, hardware isn't a limit. That's one of the reasons why we are on Android as opposed to iOS. With iOS, I've got my Apple products all around me, but you're limited by a size. The biggest you can get is a 12-inch terminal.
Well, you also have much greater hardware availability, from many manufacturers that are out.
From an Android perspective, you've got a broad diversity. So, especially with the customers we're dealing with, they're enterprise brands. They have a view of what is the cost point of their franchisees, what's the service point, what's the aesthetics? Do they want a white terminal, black terminal, big terminal, small terminal? It doesn't really matter.
Choose what they want.
We can pick what they want. And we have a number of different hardware providers that we can work with if they want to source the hardware from us.
So what percentage, so if we're talking about that, okay, 10 years old, but really in 2020, so 4 years ago, 3 years ago, you really made an effort to pivot into the full service restaurant market because you saw a need in that particular space, I guess, versus QSR and the other spaces that are there. Okay, so I get that. So how's the success been in the last few years? Where are you today?
It's been great. We're in over 1,200 stores. We're, one of the fun parts about what we're doing is that the first customer we signed up was Dine Brands and working with IHOP. So somebody likes to say, normally when you launch a company, you go for a walk around the block, and instead we took a trip to the moon. We have one of the largest, most well-known brands out there. If you say IHOP, just about anybody in the world gets an idea of what that image looks like, and they know that brand and that experience. And we're honored to be part of that journey. We did a lot of development with them. We built over 250 features for them over about 18, 20 months, and we've been rolling them out. We actually took the rollout over last year, and we accelerated it and hit consistently well over 60 stores a week.
If you built that many features out there, so there's two ways to look at that.
Yep.
One is that you're highly customizable, and you're willing to do that. But then the other side of that, which people sometimes get concerned about, is, do I end up on a one-off system?
Yeah.
And so how much of those features, or they'll sit there and go, well, you built it on this customer, am I going to be secondary to that customer? So how do you answer? Look, you've had those questions before probably your whole life, right?
Yes.
So how do you, navigate those kinds of questions?
Great question. And I think I keep coming back to all the reasons why I am where I am. And Trey's vision and what we've delivered has been the capabilities of having this market-based solution for large enterprise clients. So we have built things in a market-sense way. We've not built them for any one specific client. We've built them in an open market way. In many cases, we've worked with our partners, Dine and others, to help mitigate and say, look, I understand you want it to look red and you want it to look blue, but purple's the way the market's going. Let's build it with purple. Build consensus around purple and deliver purple, and everybody's very happy with it. We've also done bespoke work where it's literally just a specific interface for a specific third-party engine. And so we have those abilities to both build market-wide and
But if somebody does
specific.
that, does it end up in its own version, or it's just okay?
Everything,
so you go forward, so they don't have to worry about that if they ask you to do this, that the next version that comes out, next enhancement's not going to work.
No,
that's sort of the beauty of
if client X builds feature Y, every client has that capability in our solution. It's all a common version set. So we have a common core capability which enables us to be very agile. One of the things that Trey is not a very sales-forward company. We are a very product-forward company. We have a little over 110 people. 90 of those are building code, writing code, or testing code. So you're talking to about 20% of my sales team right now. We are really focused on investing in.
But you probably get 80% of the business.
Something like that. We have a product-focused and product-driven organization, and we really want to respond to our customers and to the market with product capabilities, and we do that pretty aggressively. We had a customer last fall that said, you know what, I love your system, but your KDS needs a lot of work. And we went to them and we worked with them in the field, and we looked at it and we're like, yep, we need to rebuild it.
Okay, so
in 6 weeks, we rebuilt the entire KDS.
Okay, since you brought up KDS.
Yep.
So now there's another application. So many people have invested separately in a best-of-breed product to go ahead and get KDS, right? Or back office software or whatever, but software is a whole different thing. So if a person wants to continue with what they already have, in software, are you considered an all-in-one solution or a best-of-breed, or it's really a mixture of the both, and you have the typical types of integrations with the industry-leading products? Or
we have over 80 different integrations today with most of the largest products in the marketplace, and we're building more and more of those every sprint. We have solutions for a lot of these elements, but we have a great KDS that's very cost effective. If you have a specific need for another integration,
and they can continue using the hardware they already have, right?
They can continue using that, or we can replace our software on that x86 based hardware that's there.
Same
so
thing.
you have a lot of choices with our platform that you may not have with others in the market because it's hardware independent and you have the software capabilities.
So you said earlier that we get the full service market, but you also said the larger enterprise.
Yep.
So is the sweet spot or your real target the larger enterprise, or are you also working with however we define this, the small to medium businesses, the multi-unit operators, or is it really only the larger enterprise people?
My client base goes from 6-unit brands to 1,500 unit brands. So really kind of everything in between are markets that we're serving. So, I wouldn't say that we're a great solution for a single store, single operator, unless they had some very, very specific needs, but even then it's probably not the best fit. But as you start looking at the challenges of multi-unit operation, I need to have hierarchical menu control, I need to be able to have franchisee data separation, I need to be able to control security across large platforms, and I want to pick the tech stack for me. I don't want to just have, oh, this is the loyalty program you get. I really want to be able to find who are the right partners for me as a brand. That's where we come in. And
the bigger the brand, though, also they're going to have established relationships in other areas, including, by the way, credit card processing.
And that's another area where we are independent. We stay out of that game. I'm not in the credit card payment space. I've been there. It's a challenging space, and it's one that I don't know that a lot of restaurants, especially on the smaller end of the scale, fully appreciate the costs that are going in there.
So just to make sure that I have this sort of right, when you are selling when you're selling the software side of this, is it software as a service and it's sold on a monthly fee? So the advantage that you bring here, besides not tying it to the credit card processing in here, besides being able to run on any type of hardware that's out there so they don't lose that, is a lot of times when you're trying, because you mentioned the word franchisees before, a lot of times when you're talking about franchisees, you're talking about how to get them to buy into a new system. And so when they look at that, and you've been down that, I'm sure, many times in your previous lives, a lot of times when you're doing that, you're talking about the capital cost, and then you're talking about the ongoing operating cost in there. And, franchisors are always concerned with this because you can't get people to buy in on the capital cost, or they have to help you finance it. So here's a way to keep your capital cost where it's at, okay? And then go ahead and really look at the operating expense just as you would, in any system that's in there.
That's correct. And what we're able to do is work with those brands to kind of come up with a simple, straightforward monthly package price. So we try to get down to this is what it costs you per month per store for a core package. If you go way outside the bounds, you're a one-off kind of thing, maybe there's an additional fee here that's all fully disclosed, but we try to keep it straightforward and simple and low cost.
Sure, for them to sell.
It makes it easier for them to sell, which makes it easier for me to sell and support the franchisees.
I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to have Brian Whitney, the Chief Revenue Officer of Tray, join us today as the newest industry supporter partner member. And welcome to the IFBTA, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure.